there's always situations within our environments where we need someone with a certain skill. And everybody's used to the typical methods of, if I need somebody with a skill, let's say Oracle or networking or whatever, I'm going to send out a bunch of emails to everybody, or I'm going to send out text messages, or look at a spreadsheet to figure out who's on call and start dialing, as much as I can. And that's what we tend to call the send and hope method. Let's send it to everybody and hope somebody does something about the situation. Well, there's another way to do it, and that's our way, and I'm going to show you that today. That also leads into what we call our one-touch conference calls, and we'll save that for a little bit, and I'll show you that. And also our customizable message templates is what we're going to focus on today for kicking off those notifications. Okay? We can tie into systems and integrate with trouble ticketing systems and help desk and change management, network management, you name it. But today we're going to focus on, how do I get a hold of a person when I need somebody for a certain reason? So first, let me kind of talk about this a bit. If I have on the right-hand side what I need a Unix admin, I need an Oracle guy, I need somebody for something, right? And I've got a bunch of individuals on the left. Like I talked about earlier, there's this big black space in the middle, and that's that area that people are using today where we call send and hope. If I need a Unix admin and I've got 10 guys over here that are my Unix admins, I'm probably going to send out an email to a distribution list or try and call a bunch of people and, again, hope that somebody does something. Well, what we have is a Relevance Engine, and that Relevance Engine sits between whatever it is you need, whether it's a automation from a trouble ticketing system or from a person kicking off something manually, out to those individuals. We allow the individuals to define what matters to them, so they can define how they want to be notified, what devices they have, what hours they work. Managers can go in and set up on-call lists, rotation schedules, escalation processes. So everything's in the Relevance Engine so that when an event does occur and I do need somebody with a certain skill, or maybe it's a ticket needs to be assigned or a change needs to be approved, whatever it is, that information can go to the Relevance Engine. We then find the right person based on schedules, responsibilities, etc., and we start that notification process. Now, there's two key things about this. Number one, we'll notify that person on any device they choose. That means email, text, voice, phone calls, you name it. We don't really care what device it is. We'll notify that person on their personal preference. The second point here is that I don't want to notify everybody. I'm typically looking for a person to take responsibility, and if it's a Unix problem we talked about and there's 10 guys over there, I really only need one of them. So we're going to notify the first person on that on-call list. We then require that person to respond. They can respond over any of those devices. Again, email, text, voice, you name it. When they respond, we can go back and update a system or log information if we want. But if they don't respond, we can go through an escalation process. So we'll go one by one through these people. The goal here is if I take that same situation, I need a Unix guy, I've got 10 Unix admins, and the first guy responds, I no longer need to send out the other 9 notifications. I don't have to bother those 9 people. I don't have to wake them up. They're not involved. I got somebody that took the action. Okay? So it's very, very targeted as opposed to the send and hope approach. Now, what I've just shown you here is a full circle. So I've got some kind of an IT situation. I'm going to find the right person and let them interact back. This individual does not have to be an IT guy. That could be a manager or an executive in the rest of the business where they can define what matters to them. So maybe it's an executive, and they say, if the email server goes down, I want a phone call. Well, you obviously can't email them because email is down, but they can get a phone call, they can get a text message, something to that effect. So they can actually go in and define what matters to them and get that proactive notification ahead of time so they don't have to call the help desk, right? So there's two pieces here we're talking about. One is IT and finding the right person to fix the problem. The second thing is notifying your business users and letting them know ahead of time proactively. Okay, so let's go ahead and get out of that. Enough PowerPoint for now. We'll come back to that in a bit. Let's go ahead and get right into the system. So what I want to do is show you a little bit about how we set things up. It is a self-service on-demand environment. So what this allows you to do is come in and set up your own information. Now, I happen to have a lot of permissions here, so I've got a lot of boxes. But let's say you're an end user. You're a person being notified. You're in IT. You'd have at least these two in the middle here where you can see what's coming to you in your inbox. You can also manage your devices and how you prefer to be notified. You may be able to kick off manual events. You may also be able to look at reports. If you're a manager or a supervisor, you'd have these two down here where you can manage your group and your on-call list and your rotation schedule, as well as your own employees. So let's walk through some of these fairly quickly here, starting with devices. So I've logged in as me, so these happen to be my devices, and as you can tell here, I've gotten carried away with my device list, but I can have as many as I want. Typically what we would do is synchronize with your Active Directory or your LDAP or your trouble ticketing system. So I've got basic information in here like, let's say, my work email and my work phone. Okay, so I've got that information put together, and that's in the system. You can allow me to come in and set up as many devices as I want. So I can put in my home email, my iPad, my pager, my home phone, whatever I want. I can also put an order around those devices based on how I prefer to be notified. I may want a text message first, where you may want a phone call first. We also have a time frame. This allows me to narrow down some of these devices, like my home phone here. I don't mind you calling that phone, but I only want you to use it on Saturday and Sunday. Okay? So very, very flexible in allowing the end user to decide how they're going to be notified. Now, you typically don't want to notify a single person about an event. That's where groups come into play. So again, let's go to my Unix admin team here, use that as my example. And again, I can have different groups within the system, and I can have a simple list of people, or I can have a sophisticated schedule like this here. So for my Unix team, I have daytime, evenings, and weekends, and I have different people on call. Let's say I want to see who's on call Monday night. I can hover over Monday night, and it pops a list. So what we can see here is I have 4 people on call, and I have an escalation time in minutes on the left-hand side of that box. So this will only notify Calvin on his devices first, and we're giving Calvin 20 minutes to respond. If he responds in 20 minutes, we're done. We don't wake up, bother, notify anybody else on the list. So again, very targeted as opposed to the send and hope approach. If Calvin does not respond in 20 minutes, we move on to Art on his devices, and we go through this list in a method based on the escalation process that was defined by the manager. I can have different escalation times on different days. In this example here, I'm actually escalating from group to group. So if all 4 of these people ignore this for 60 minutes, it then moves on to another group called Operations with another escalation process. So this will relentlessly keep going until somebody responds to the event. Okay, pretty powerful. Now the other thing here is that this can be maintained by the manager of this group. So typically the manager of the employees can click on any day, any time. They can change people around. They can put in automated rotations, whatever they want to do. All right? Now the other thing I want to touch on is reporting. There's a lot of reporting within the system, but I do want to touch on one in particular, and that's what we call our performance report. This is a report for the managers in your organization, not the administrator of the system. So if I happen to be the manager of the application support team, I can come in here and I can look at all my people, all my employees. I can see how many events they've received, how many they responded to, their average response time, their maximum response time, how many times do they escalate from person to person. So pretty powerful. When I sort this, I can see that all my employees respond within 1 to 2 minutes, which is pretty quick when they get a notification, except Brian. Brian here takes on average 30 minutes to respond to a notification. He actually took 41 minutes once. So I can see he's way off the standard from everybody else in my organization. That's really good information because now as a manager, I can sit down with Brian and ask him what the problem is. Maybe he's too busy. Maybe his device doesn't work. Or maybe he just doesn't care. Something. But he's way off the standard from everybody else in the organization, and we can see that very clearly based on these measurements. I can export this to a spreadsheet, take it with me if I need to go to a meeting with it. Okay? So again, the reporting is pretty powerful. Now let's get to the meat of what we want to discuss today. So we have the ability to kick off notifications for any particular purpose. Okay? And again, it gives us the ability to do that however we want. If I want, let's say I need an Oracle DBA now. Okay? Again, all I need to do is, what most people would do at this point is look up a spreadsheet, an on-call list, figure out who's on call, all that, right? With the xMatters Relevance Engine, I just type in my group name, I pick the group, hit send, off it goes. It will find those people based on their device preferences, based on their schedules, and it'll keep going until somebody responds to my event. Right? So very powerful in finding those people without me having to look up who's on call, without having to look up device information, names, phone numbers, nothing. It all just happens. Now what I was going to do here is let's go ahead and take this a step further. Right? Let's say I have a conference call situation. I've got a high severity situation, big customers down, and I need to get a bunch of people on a conference call. We can have a custom panel that's built around this. Let's say I have a Severity 1 customer outage. I can type more information here if I want, or I can just leave that empty. right? And then I can start selecting my recipients. Now again, remember, I don't know who I need. I just know I need certain groups, and I need, somebody from my security specialist team. I need an Oracle DBA on this call. I also need somebody from my desktop group. Okay, so I can pick them. I need somebody from my mainframe team, so one of my system programmers. I need somebody from my data center management team, so I can select that here as well. And lastly, I need somebody from my UK client support team. Okay, so what I've just done is I've selected 6 groups of people for this conference call. And instead of trying to hunt them down and send out distribution list emails and just a big bunch of noise, what our system's going to do is going to call the person on call in each group all at the same time. So it's going to call 6 people, okay? And it's going to push them into a conference call live. So I'm not sending you emails and text messages with a conference number and a 12-digit code and asking you to call in. What we've found is that most of our customers tell us that takes about 15 minutes to get people on the call to start talking about the problem. We actually have one customer that says it takes between 30 to 60 minutes, and then they start talking about the problem. We're going to do this in less than 60 seconds, okay? And we're going to time this. So I have a tab up here, and you'll see this tab says 1 up there, right? And if I were to hit this, you'll see that countdown right there, so we'll be able to see it. I'm going to pause this and put it back, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start this. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to kick this off. You're going to hear my phone ring. I'm going to get in on the conference call on one of these 6 people, and then we're also going to go through, and you're going to get 5 other live people that I've got standing by, okay? So let's go back. Let's go ahead and start this, and let's kick this thing off, okay? So we're going to hear my phone ring here. I'm going to answer the call and get into the conference call. I'm going to actually bring up a conferencing panel here, and we'll cover the reporting here in a bit. But this is going to show me who's going to get into the conference call here. So here's my call. Hello?
You are receiving an automated conference bridge request. Press any digit to hear your message. We have a Severity 1 customer outage. To respond with, join the call. Press 1. To respond with, unavailable. Press 2. To repeat this message, press 9.
So I'll hit 1 here.
You will now be placed in the conference bridge.
So I'm in. How you guys doing? So I see Boss is here, Carol, Gary, Phil, Desi. We've got a 6th person joining in here in a bit. Okay, we're at about our minute, so we got 5 out of the 6. Not bad. So I'm going to go ahead and end this conference call here. Thanks again, everybody, for joining.
No worries. Thanks. Bye.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and end that. And what happens is once the conference call is done, right, and everybody drops off, we have a conference history report. And that conference history report is going to show me a list of everybody that was in the conference call, when they joined, as well as when they left. And if I refresh this here real quick, we'll see some of those ending times. There we go. Okay. So it shows me the people that were in, the time they joined, and the time they left. Okay. So fairly quickly, we were able to get everybody in on that conference call. Well, 5 out of the 6 anyway. It was probably still hunting down somebody on call in that 6th group. Okay. But extremely fast to get that happening. One of the keys there is that I'm not asking you to join. I'm not giving you an email and a text and saying, hey, when you have a time, can you please get to a phone and call in? We actually called all those people's phones at the same time, pushed them into the conference call live. So very, very quick. Okay? So that was a typical conference call panel. And again, we have the ability to create these panels. So if I were to take a look at, let's say, this business user communication panel, okay? What you saw just now was a conferencing panel, but in this case, I've got a business user communication panel where I want to notify my end users about outages or maintenance. And maybe this is a new outage, and it has to do with facilities, and it has to do with power outages, and, you know, I have a certain start and end time and a ticket number, and it's affecting certain locations. Well, this form was very specifically built for a certain company. That wouldn't work for you. So you have the ability to modify this panel and create your own.